Hey guys, it's Barrett with the Gimme Camper. I just wanted to tell you guys that Tireminder recently sent me their i10 system. I really like this system. We're going to go over it in more detail later, but I will say that the Tireminder 88C system has worked great in my truck so far. So the new system, I'm actually installing it on my work car. The car that I'm installing it on is a 2006 Chevrolet Cobalt, so it's pre-TPMS. I thought, hey, it'd be a good time to try this and just, point out the differences, kind of compare the two systems and let you guys know about it. So we will be having a series of videos about that in the future. So for right now, I just want to do a quick update on my Tireminder 88C that I use in my truck so far. So we've had the system for about a year and a half. I want to start by saying not to forget your yearly maintenance on your TPMS systems. What maintenance is that, you may ask? Well, they do recommend yearly that you replace both the rubber O-ring and the button battery in the sensors. I had one sensor stop working on a recent trip to Michigan as I have not changed the batteries. After we arrived, I put new batteries and O-rings on the sensors, and this fixed my sensor that had quit working. While we're talking about the sensors, let me tell you about the sensors that I've been using for the last 1.5 years, and those are the flow-through sensors. I'm going to tell you that these flow-through sensors are way more easy to deal with than the cap-top sensors, especially when you use the locking nuts on the sensors. It was such a pain to loosen the nut and remove the cap that in the other cap-top sensors, I just stopped using the locking nuts because it was just too big of a pain, because you had to loosen the nut, then remove the cap, and then either remove the nut completely or tighten it down all the way so that you could fit an air chuck or tire valve on the tire stem, and it just wasn't very user friendly. Now with the flow through sensors, you can just remove the cap, check the pressure, add air just like normal, like it's not even there. It's just so much of a nicer experience with the flow through sensors, so I'm going to keep kind of driving that point home. If you're making a decision, I would personally spend a little bit more money and get the flow through sensors because it is so much better. I also want to take this time to remind everybody that if you hold down the center button and the up button on the 88C, that erases the memory of the tire pressure there, and it deletes all those pressures, and so the system kind of reboots and updates with a real-time pressure so you know what it is before you start driving and you don't have to go around and check each tire manually. This is the only way that it gives you a real-time reading, because the sensors actually check the pressure very frequently, but they don't actually transmit it to the transmitter, but that's to save the battery. It's also the reason that when you unhook your camper and you drive around for about 45 minutes, the monitor doesn't, alarm or anything until about 45 minutes, telling you that the sensors aren't picking up. However, if the sensor senses a leak or other alarmable situation, it will transmit a stronger signal, which the monitor will pick up quickly and notify you of the issue with both visual and auditory alarms. Let's talk about the good points that we've had with the system. I do want to say that I personally want a monitor that has a dedicated display. Some systems use your phone with an app to display the alarms and such, but when that happens, what happens if your phone's dead? What happens if the app's accidentally closed and not running in the background? How are you going to know? You're going to check that every time, make sure the app's on before you leave. I also not a fan of having all the screens and stuff that I have on my dashboard, but this one I think is really important, and that's why it's there. Some people also say that you don't need a TPMS if you use a tire gauge, but I have had the Tireminder system. Actually, it was the TM77. It warned me that I had a leak in the trailer tire when I was multiple hours into a long road trip. I was actually 30 minutes from home on an 8 to 9 hour drive. I had a hole in the sidewall of the tire, and if I hadn't known about this, I know that it would have leaked more and blew out and caused a lot of damage. This caused me to be a fan for life of a TPMS system. I will also say that the system is easy to use, and like the manual says, there's no reason to look at the monitor constantly because it will notify you with an audio-visual alarm if there is an issue. I will also say that Tireminder has some awesome customer service. I saw a customer state once in a forum that they had an issue. They never even called Tireminder customer service, but Tireminder saw their question about the product, got in touch with them, told them that they thought it was a defective unit, and they sent them a new unit without the person actually ever contacting customer service. And that is the best customer service that I've ever seen in my life for any product. I'll just throw that out there. So let's talk about any issues I've had. I've had a few sensors go off whenever it gets really hot and then it starts raining in a rainstorm just because of the differences there. I've seen people have this issue with other brands of TPMS systems as well. And that's just because of the temperature difference. And you know, you go from extreme hot to cooling off real quick. Things like that can happen. And it's kind of a telltale because you'll have more than one kind of start going off at the same time. And then you're just like, oh, it must be because I entered this rainstorm. So just keep that in your mind whenever you're driving through a storm or something like that and it's been hot, that if it goes off, it may not be the tire. Now there was one time that we were in the Tetons and we were leaving Gravant campground, which was a really nice campground, I'll say. It was the end of September, it's starting to get cold. But you know, I went around before we left and I checked all the pressures and I aired everything up because we were at high altitude and it was colder, so it was showing lower pressure. But then as we gradually descended down from the mountain, I got some overpressure alerts after we made quite a descent. Now the way that we came down wasn't on the pass, and so it was kind of gradual. You didn't even really notice coming down all that much. But you know, we got to one point where we started getting tire pressure, high pressure alarms, and we pulled over. I did let a little bit of air out of the tires just for some safety's sake. The only failure that I've had with the TPMS system is that the micro USB cable failed, but you know, it's a micro USB cable, those fail all the time. And so I just got a new cable and that's worked out fine. If I had to say one thing that I was unhappy about with this unit, it would be the magnetic mount. Actually, I like the mount. The rubber piece that's the cover came off, still not a big deal to me because the unit's on there 99% of the time. But the metal piece that attaches to the back of the unit, so it just kind of sticks to the back so that that metal piece can stick to the magnet, that has a hard time on this rubber cover on this specific unit. So I did actually put some epoxy on there. I kind of dripped it everywhere. It's not the prettiest, but it hadn't came off since then. So nobody knows about that except for me and you, and apparently anybody that's watched this video. So I want to say thanks for watching this week's video. I do have some affiliate links for the i10 model down below, the TM77 and the TM88C, which I was both happy with. They are Camping World exclusives. But from what I've seen so far, the i10 is a great system. One main difference with it is it does show you the pressure in all your tires at the same time, where the other ones you have to scroll through. But like I say, they say stop looking at it. It's just a distraction. It's something you don't need to look at all the time, but it's good to have it there running in the background so it can let you know when there's a problem. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.